All it takes is 15 seconds to change your life. That's all it takes.
Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Shafer of Talks with Dr. Shafer. I'm a physician, mom, life coach, musician, author, publisher, and I am passionate about helping others to reclaim their stories so that you can begin to live your most beautiful future. Now, today we have someone who has done just that and an incredible guest with invaluable experience and advice. Michele Locke is a family law attorney who has been in practice for over 23 years, a former judge, and the host of the addictive podcast, the Love, Lust, Law podcast, which is described as a gripping true crime meets courtroom podcast that puts modern relationship dramas in the forefront and gives the invaluable perspective of Michele Locke and her colleague, Jake Deptula, known for Strictly Stalking, his own podcast, and his work in the field of law. Practicing law in Texas, Michele Locke is on a mission to help people both in the legal system and through her media presence to lean into their what now and reclaim their story to build their most beautiful future, just like we are always discussing here on Talks with Dr. Shafer. Michele, thank you so much for being here on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this.
Me too. We were chatting off screen before coming on, and, what a wonderful opportunity for me and for our guests to really pick your brain about where you have come from and what you are doing and the what now, the why in this moment in time, you are really throwing yourself into this amazing project. I am not pumping this podcast at all. It doesn't need any extra gas from me. It's really, truly gripping. I loved listening to your introduction, which I think for anyone who is going through a divorce or has recently gone through a divorce is a great starting off point to listen to and just kind of get some ideas about the nuts and bolts, and then getting an insider's view or at least an expert's view on some other kind of in the spotlight cases of family law.
That's correct. It's what I do now on the podcast because I think, Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, I'm doing their case next. To kind of, and it's not really an insider because I'm not involved in the case, but I
Right.
have been in the litigation trenches for 23 years. And so who better to tell you what people are most likely thinking, the strategies behind why they're doing certain things, than someone that has created those own strategies for their own clients to go through similar, if not the same circumstances. And so I just want people to understand the system a little bit better because it shouldn't be quite the intimidating forum that it is. And when you think about these famous people like Brad and Angelina or Charlie Sheen through his multiple divorces, everyone thinks, oh, well, they're Hollywood. Oh, they're this, they're that. But when they go in front of a judge in a courtroom, they're not on their territory. And they're just like you and I when we go through the family court systems. And so we can learn a lot from what's happened in their cases and how it can apply or I guess parts to avoid in our own lives.
Absolutely. And I think there is so much value. If you're someone who's never been divorced before, or maybe it's not your first rodeo, not your first divorce, but your first divorce was quite peaceful, amicable, and now you find yourself in a different situation. Getting some realistic perspective is so valuable, not only for your peace, but also for your pocketbook, because it is really easy to get involved in every single tug of war, even over a toaster when you're getting divorced, and even much bigger issues like your children. And you've got to learn to pick your battles. And you talk about that on the show.
Not everything can be a battle, and especially if you've got an opposing party that either suffers from a personality disorder or has characteristics that make it problematic to deal with them. You've got to learn which battles to pick because if you make everything a battle, you will lose. And you can't do that. You really have to pick carefully.
Yeah. So one thing that I experienced and I learned from my journey and from talking to experts like yourself and by reading is, you know, we have this sense of justice that maybe doesn't really match up with what the courtroom is going to gift us, because we're seeing justice from the lens of just our perspective, and we're not necessarily understanding that there's this big rule book. And by the way, the rule book is shifting, right? There are new cases going into the law that's going to potentially affect, and okay, your friend had a divorce in a different state and they may be giving you advisement or
My brother's sister's
encouragement.
uncle's best friend had this happen to them in this state, and so that's what should happen here.
And you get hung up on that should have. That's what should have happened for you, or that's what should happen for you. And that can be really taxing on your mental health, I think.
It is, but then what people don't realize in family law in particular, you could have identical facts for 99% of the case. And that 1% difference can completely change the outcome of the case. And that's what people don't realize. Like, well, my best friend's sister got $5,000 a month in alimony. Well, good for her. Here are the facts of your case. And I'm not going to tell you an unrealistic, I'm not going to set for you an unrealistic expectation of what's going to happen in court. Just not. I'm going to tell you the realities of it. And I hate to break it to you, we're in Texas. It's an anti-alimony state. We don't even call it alimony in Texas. So I really, while I appreciate their family and friends are trying to help them, just like you don't go to WebMD to diagnose your medical conditions, you don't ask your sister's brother's nephew's best friend what happened in their divorce to apply it in yours. Nor do you ask ChatGPT, because that's the next one that I'm dealing with right now. Don't
Yeah.
ask
Isn't that
ChatGPT.
interesting?
Don't.
Isn't that interesting? And it's not going to have the perspective from your state. It's not there yet. And it's interesting what's going to happen over time. I'd be very curious your feelings about AI and Chat GPT and how it's being utilized currently, because I think not only are your clients using it, but there are probably law firms using it too, right? That probably happens.
I
Not
use
you.
it.
Oh,
No,
okay.
hang on.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think AI, one, it's been around for a lot longer than people actually realize. But
Yeah.
secondly, it is a useful tool. It is not the answer. It is a tool to add into your repertoire, but it is not
Mm.
a standalone answer to all. And the best way I can talk about it is I've had clients send me, here's how ChatGPT says you should handle my case. Thank you very much for sending that to me. I'll make sure I take a look at it. And I look at it, and then I have to call the client back, and then I have to argue with the client about why ChatGPT was wrong. And then I have to come back to the fact that, hey, I've done this with this particular judge on this particular issue 10 different times before, and this is how this judge rules on this particular issue. And it's usually quite contrary to what ChatGPT told them. And so then you've got to manage expectations from what they set from what they got from ChatGPT. So, do I use it in my practice? Absolutely. But for me, it is a starting point. It is a help to point me in the right direction. It's a help to point me out to something I didn't maybe think about that I can incorporate. But when I use it, I always verify, 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 verify.
Hugely important in anything we do in life, especially as professional resources. I was really curious to hear your utilization as well as your thoughts about how it's going to affect your profession, because there are a lot of grumblings, mumblings, grand ideas, as well as concerns in medicine about what will happen because of AI. There are some great things and there are some pretty concerning potential outcomes. What are the things that you see occurring in family law and the law system in general that, you know, maybe we need to put our hazards on and be really mindful for?
So, family law is very nuanced and it's very based on matters of the heart. AI isn't designed to manage human emotions. And so what may be an appropriate analysis given the AI model. It is not given the particular parties, the particular facts, the particular children in a case. And so that to me is really the distinction, because, and it's kind of like in medicine, you can use the computer operated machines to help guide you, like your hysterectomies, right? Or do like the cataracts, the lens replacements. I mean, we use computers all the time to help with surgery. But there is something different about a surgeon who's been in that operating room for 25 years and has seen something that doesn't pop up very much, but when it does, they know that this is how you have to handle it. And that's different. AI can't replace that. AI can't replace judgment calls like that. And those judgment calls are what make or break cases. Those judgment calls are what are life or death decisions in surgeries. And so for me, that's I think what people are missing about AI is it's the judgment calls that it can't get.
Yeah. That is so beautifully stated. And it really brings me to something that is sometimes difficult to explain to what we call a layperson when it comes to medical procedures. Often they have an idea for a certain person, or maybe they like a facility because of, this loyalty bias they have. That's where their doctor works, et cetera. And at the end of the day, when it comes to a procedure, you really want someone that has done that procedure over and over ad nauseum, and it is just route for them. Exactly. So that for them, they are not paying attention to the procedure as much. They're actually mitigating all of the other potential things that you were hinting at that could happen any moment. And they're prepared to jump in action. And that, because it does happen, those complications do happen. I'm one of those people. I was having a C-section with my son. I almost bled to death because the uterine artery was incidentally cut. And
Clipped.
I mean, that
And of
goes
course, you're an
from,
MD. Of course, that would happen to you. It's like
I
if
think,
something that's going to go bad in surgery, it's to an MD or it's to a lawyer.
I think my physician
Tell
was
me I'm
just,
wrong. Tell me
my
I'm wrong
physician
about
was,
that.
no, my physician was horrified and really had a hard time looking me in the eye for days after that. And I don't know, that didn't feel great as a patient, but I empathize because I think it was just a horrific, near death experience. And I remember looking up at the anesthesiologist who I knew, and she did such a good job of taking care of me in that moment. She was so like a beautiful angel. And I
Oh,
remember so
yeah.
clearly the moment when I didn't care anymore. It's like, I don't care
That's a good
anymore.
anesthesiologist. That's a
And then
great anesthesiologist.
then you realize like, oh, and then I realized, oh, I think I'm dying actually, because I wasn't scared. I didn't care anymore. And then I thought, oh, I think I'm dying, but they got fluids in me. They pumped me up. They stabilized me. They managed to deal with the vascular injury, and I survived. And here I am. So, but that happened in a second. And you go from everything is routine to everything is not. And I've been there in courtrooms as someone who's been divorced. And I've been there and I've seen the look on the faces of counsel when something changes and there's this seismic shift in the room. And I've seen counsel that were very more than prepared. It's almost like they had it in their back pocket and they were just waiting. They're just waiting for the open invitation to use that line. And I've also
Oh,
seen
yeah.
counsel, who were not.
It's so fun when you see, because that happened to me in court today. The unexpected happened, didn't go anywhere near the way I thought it was going to, but man, did it go good for me. I mean, and it's when you have it's like an experienced surgeon. Your surgeon was experienced, was able to stop that bleed, save your life, despite an oops. And then I was getting in court. And I'm like, oh, I left court skipping. And it's not because I won, because there's no winning in family law court. Let's be real clear. But
Yeah.
it became a more fair process for my client because I was able to pivot so quickly. And that is the difference between skilled surgeons, unskilled surgeons, between skilled lawyers and not skilled lawyers, because you have to be able to pivot. You have to. And Chat GPT is not designed for pivoting.
It's not. It's experts like
Not.
yourself. It's experts like yourself. And that's why I think it's such a beautiful gift. You know, podcasting is beautiful and wonderful. It's also, you know, can be arduous, especially when you are creating an excellent piece of a product, we sometimes say, but I don't want to say product in this case because that's not really what it is. It's a gift. And it takes a lot of time and expertise. And I really think you can't undersell what a gift it is to share this information because, you know, your billable hours are being used to create something that's free and that's just going to help people. What inspired you to take the leap to get started in podcasting?
The things. I've had 15 surgeries in the last 5 years, and I got divorced. And I got to go back to being me. I used to be close to 300 pounds. I've lost 118 by now, maybe a little bit more. And I realized that while I can help clients out, you know, case by case by case, hearing by hearing by hearing, that I wanted to help more. And I wanted people to not go through what I went through. When you talk about complications, man, it becomes a running joke with my orthopedic surgery group because I've got a group that I use for I joke head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. But I have I'm sorry, I'm terrible. I make jokes in bad places, dark humor. But with my last cervical fusion, they had to go through the back to refuse it because the one through the front didn't work. Anyways, I ended up with a C5 palsy afterwards, which is apparently, according to my surgeon, not quite so common. And I asked him and I said, just out of curiosity, I'm like, how many times has this happened in your practice? He's like, twice. And I was like, okay. He's like, the first one was an 80-year-old woman. He's like, I told her it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. What an issue. And I said, in your second? He's like, you. Awesome. Then with my knee surgeon. So one of my other jokes is we're in Texas, so go big or go home. And so everything I do in my life, from my red lipstick to my animals, it's go big or go home. And I say that with my 165-pound, you know, half Mastiff, half Great Dane behind me. And then I have Maine Coons that are almost 30 pounds apiece. So literally go big or go home. And I had a Baker cyst. I've had both my knees replaced. I've had my ankle replaced, just to name a few things. And on one of my knees, I had what my doctor referred to as the biggest Baker cyst he's ever seen in his career. And he's been doing it for 30 years. And he said he accidentally actually pulled out my Baker cyst thinking it was something he needed to remove when he did my knee replacement, but then realized very quickly, oh no, that doesn't come out, and pushed it back in. Then I also woke up mid-surgery on my second knee replacement and to like the hammering and the smell, like there's a smell, right? There's a smell.
The
Smell.
Bovie.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And because again, I have a terrible sense of humor, I was like, hey, I'm awake. I can feel it. So we talk about pivoting. I wasn't awake much longer after that.
I bet.
So my surgeons always laugh. They're like, it's because you're a lawyer. It's because you're a lawyer. But yeah, so it happens to doctors, it happens to lawyers. And then one of my other doctors who had a complication on something, I talked to him about it. He's like, the only other person, he's like, that's ever happened to in my career. Oh, I ended up with an infection post-op. And the only other person in his career that ended up with an infection, like I did, was his best friend who was a surgeon who he did the surgery on.
It's always the
Like,
favors. It's always the favors for sure.
oh, to get back to why I'm doing this now, it really is. I ignored my health and put everyone in my life ahead of myself. I scheduled the doctor's appointments for my husband, for my stepkids, for my kids. I planned everything, did everything, booked every vacation. I mean, I did it all. And no one did the same for me. And I'm not going to sit here and blame them for it. I could have stopped and said no more. I didn't. So I got my own portion to blame in that. And and it's professional women in particular that I find put ourselves not third or fourth, not fifth or sixth. We're like 99th on the list. And I don't, and I know you're laughing because you know how accurate this is. And it's, I'll get to it later. I'll get to it later. I'll get to it later. I did that, and I am only by the grace of God still alive today. And so when I got divorced, when I got finally done with the majority of my surgeries, I finally got to breathe and go, what can I do now? I love my practice. I love practicing. I love being in the courtroom. There's no better high for me than a cross examination, and a good one. And that'll put me in a good mood for a week. Um, like, I don't need drugs. I just need a good cross. But I really, if I can help one person a day not do what I did, then I've done something right. And this life is a journey. And at the end of your life, when you look back, do you want to look back and to see that you made it Instagram perfect for everyone else to look at? Or did you make it perfect for yourself? And that's what I'm trying to do.
That's such a beautiful way to frame it, because I think so many of us who have gone through midlife shifts or divorces, separations, changes in career, it is that realization that it's almost like there's a picture on the wall and then there's your life. And you'd rather you want to try to get into that picture, and it's less perfect than what you've created, this life that you're just kind of rotely walking through. It's not perfect, but it's you see it. It's so crystal clear for you, but you feel stuck in this life that you built for yourself. And like you said, there are things that may victimize us in our lifetime, but we're not victims in the sense that we do have autonomy and we do get to make choices, even if that choice is a very small choice. And I think that radical accountability of what now and why did I get where I am? What are some tools I can pick up from really dissecting that and understanding the why, so that now the what now I can go about in a really present and purposeful manner. And so for you, that what now has translated into sharing your craft with the podcast. And with regards to your career, have you shifted the way that you pick the cases you're involved in, or you structure how you show up within the structure of your practice? What does that look like?
So I'm still learning the balancing juggling act, because I do my law practice. I also work for a municipality outside of Central Texas that I do work for. And then I do the podcasting in addition to being a mom. Like, I have a 10-year-old. My other two boys are almost 22 and 19. And so I still have mom responsibilities. So to say it's an easy balancing act would be a lie and would be disingenuous. Um, it is a challenge. Am I changing the cases a little bit? In Texas, for people that don't know, Texas is the only state left in the country that allows jury trials in family law cases. And that changes the practice substantially here. I am a litigator through and through, and so I do the jury trials. They don't bother me. I stand up in front of 90 people, 60 people, pick a jury, try a case. There's not as many family law lawyers that can do that. There are some really good ones that do it, but it's a little more fewer and far between. I am tired of being in the courtroom, and it's not because I'm not good at what I do. It's because the courtroom does not solve problems for families. And things are said in a courtroom that you cannot come back from. There are bridges that are burned that you cannot come back from. Your children, if you're doing a divorce with children, your children did not ask to be brought into a situation where the two of you can't get your heads out of nowhere, and put them first. And so my practice is changing some, because I'm trying to get out of the courtroom, because I just don't think it's conducive to helping families, because it's matters of the heart. And it's kind of similar to the analysis of ChatGPT. The courtroom is run by statutes and rules and laws. That can never solve matters of the heart. Just can't. It can create structures in which to operate. It can create boundaries. It can create, it can change basically the very social fabric of our society by deciding who lives where and who gets what. But it doesn't solve the problems. And so there needs to be a more creative approach to figuring out how to solve those problems, in my opinion. So am I trying to change my practice a little bit? Yes, because I don't want to be in the courtroom anymore. Being in the courtroom is also not conducive to a healthy lifestyle. Any surgeon will be able to tell you. It's not like you can take a call from the school principal if you're in the middle of a surgery. You can't do it. Same if I'm in a hearing. Can't take the phone call, sorry. So it's just not conducive to a healthy lifestyle. And the problem is for me is I'm really good in the courtroom. And so I attract the cases that need courtroom assistance. So I'm having a little bit of a struggle between shifting away from the courtroom just because that's usually where I excel at.
Hmm. It's so fascinating because I think, anyone who's been through a divorce from a non-litigator, from a non-counsel perspective, and has gone through a divorce that maybe also utilized mediators, which seems to be more and more common. I don't know if that's your experience as well in Texas. Seems to be more and more common.
We have to mediate before going to final trial. We have to. There's exceptions for domestic violence and some other exceptions, but as a general rule, you have to mediate.
Yeah. And it's hard with DV. I can speak to that myself. But that being said, I find the mediation to at least the experience from the perspective of the person who's on the blank versus blank side of things to be a more human experience because it's a discussion. Because that is one thing I asked you, and I want to ask you again on camera. I asked you off camera, how does your nervous system take it? Because for the person who's sitting in that room, it is so hard on your nervous system when it seems so simple, and it seems like this should be just an easy process. And then you watch all of these stones being thrown, and you watch all of this unnecessary waste of resources, and often kind of heightened emotions in the courtroom, and things that are going on that you, as the person's being represented, are sometimes like, can we get back on topic about, can we just get divorced? Can we just figure this out? Sometimes as the client, it can feel a little bit like, what's going on here? Whereas mediation can feel different. I don't know your thoughts on mediation and divorce. It's required, you said, in Texas, but in general, is that something that you would advise someone to do, to try, if it's not required in your state, before going through the court and thinking, oh yeah, the judge is going to see my way and decide and going to give me everything I deserve and want?
Good luck with that. Um, sorry. There are, and I want to make this abundantly clear, except for rare cases. I had one of these cases in the last 2 weeks that I had a week-long trial, and the court at the end of the trial said, Ms. Locke, your requests are granted. And it was 10 pages of requests, just granted. That doesn't happen. You never walk out of the courtroom, almost never, happy. You just don't. Because there's never enough time to tell your side of the story. There's never enough time for you to feel like you got your day in court. If you're going to court in a family law case, typically the most testimony you're looking at is 5 to 6 hours a day, typically max. And that's running from 8:30 to 5, giving, court reporters breaks, and a jury or the judge lunch breaks, etc. So you're never going to get 20 years of she did me wrong or he did me wrong out in front of the judge. It's not going to happen. And so you always walk away dissatisfied. You also walk away dissatisfied because, no offense to the parties involved, court doesn't care about you. Court doesn't care about the other side. The court cares about what happens to those kids. And that perspective is different than what your perspective is. Because remember, most of these judges have seen true child abuse. And I'm talking about kids that are used as ashtrays to put out cigarettes. I'm talking about kids that have broken orbital sockets, broken femurs, broken wrists, broken rib cages that are 16 pounds at a year old because they're malnourished. That's what a lot of these judges have seen. So when you come in and say he or she is abusing my child because they gave him an ugly haircut, you're not going to walk out of court a happy person. And so I caution people about court. The benefit of mediation is the creativity, because you can agree to stuff in mediation that best suits your family, that best suits the kid's needs, that a court does not have the authority or power to order. That is the biggest distinction. And that is one where one of the biggest benefits of mediation is you get to be creative to solve the unique issues that are unique to your family. Further, in mediation, you get to tell a little bit more of your story. You get to tell a little bit more so that you feel like you got to be heard by the mediator. That's not going to happen in a courtroom, because you're going to have opposing counsel jump up, hearsay, speculation, non-responsive, sustained, and then you're going to sit there going, well, I just want to tell my story.
Yeah. I just want to respond.
Mediation, you
it
get
often
to.
feels like you can't respond in court often to
Right.
things that are said. And that is especially if you're a victim of DV, or if you're just a human that's been in this marriage and you have a side of the story that you feel isn't being told, but the other side is. It's dehumanizing. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And, when we talk about, well, why are we talking about this on a healthcare podcast? Well, when you look at statistics,
so many reasons.
So many reasons. When you look at statistics for divorce, many people are going to go through a divorce, or going to encourage or support someone who's also going through one. And that divorce is going to have an effect on your health and your mindset, and hopefully
It can crater you. It can crater you. Just like a bad marriage can crater your health, a bad divorce can crater your health. And people don't talk about that often enough.
Absolutely. It's a grieving.
I've seen it.
It's like a death often for people. It's like going through the grieving process of a death.
I often tell clients that there is no shame, and I encourage it, to seek mental health treatment while you're going through a divorce. It is okay to say you need that extra support, because crying every day doesn't help you get the kids to school on time. And there's no shame in it. There's no shame in it. Now, your spouse may, or your soon-to-be former spouse may try to shame you. I can't tell you on the bench how many times I heard from one of the opposing counsels, oh, well, she takes anxiety meds, or he takes anxiety meds. Thinking to myself, but they were trying to use that as a weapon, that they can't be the primary parent because they take anxiety meds. I'd be like, well, they should be the parent because they do take anxiety meds. But it's just interesting. But does it affect your health? Yeah. Affects your blood pressure, affects your ability to sleep, affects your cortisol levels. It affects your total system, and you've got to take care of it during the divorce.
Do you have like a toolkit that you as counsel give to clients and say, not only do I want to make sure you're keeping good records and you're providing me those records in a timely manner, and you're going to court when we're supposed to, and you're dressed nicely and all these things. Here's also the self-help toolkit that I gift to you to help you along on this process.
I don't necessarily give here's the package, all that's actually a pretty good idea. I may actually start incorporating that. But I do tell them to stay in touch with their medical providers. I do tell them to say, and it's actually what you'll hear about me talk about on my podcast is that it's okay to say you're not okay. And we are so afraid in today's day and age to say we're not okay. I think there is a tremendous amount of oxygen you can get back in your lungs when you tell someone, hey, I'm not doing okay. And you'd be surprised at the support network that finds you when you're not okay, and it's okay to say you're not. There's no shame in it. And everyone wants to be the soldier. And I got this. Sweetheart, sometimes we just don't. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so I do tell them that. I say, it's okay to be not okay. I also try and tell them, it's like, you can't worry about everything. I will tell you when we need to worry. And so I try and take some of the burden off of them, because as laymen, they're not going to understand what happens through a divorce. They don't understand the legalese. They don't understand the process. It's a frustrating process. It's not a quick process. And I always use the tagline of, there's lots of 4-letter words in divorce, and fair is not one of them. And so I really try and say, look, I'll tell you when to worry. But until I tell you when to worry, don't. Also, if you're sending any communications, remember, if you are writing something or about to do something that you think is going to make me angry as your divorce attorney, don't do it. That takes a huge amount of, they have to think about it off their plate, because they know when they're doing something, oh, Michelle's not going to like this. It's a real easy rule to follow.
I do want to talk about this. I hinted at it earlier, but so as someone who is in the courtroom, and as you mentioned earlier, you have other things going on. There are days where you have to be in the courtroom, and you also know the school might call, or, you sent your kid to school, but you're kind of pretty sure the school nurse was going to call any minute, right? But you can't have your phone on because you have that trial that's been planned forever. And so your assistant knows,
Correct.
but they're not you. They're not you. They're not mom. And so you're in these situations that not only tug at your heartstrings, but they're not conducive to that life balance. How do you navigate the legal system with regards to how it impacts not only your life balance and your family, but also just your nervous system?
I think it's something we talked about off air. I grew up in chaos, and chaos on just one side of my family. My mom is a rock. My mom is a godsend. My mom and my stepdad are the most amazing people. I'm so fortunate that I had that, right? Because the other side that I had, and I know more about medical stuff than I should. My biological father was a surgeon. He was a urologist. My grandfather was a urologist. My step grandmother was a nurse. Like, I remember being 9 years old on my grandfather's lap and him going through the medical encyclopedia at the time and showing me elephantitis of the balls elephantitis of the testicles would be the correct term. At like
Oh,
9
no.
years old. So yeah,
That's
I have not
unfortunate.
forgotten that one. But anyways, I say that, so that my nervous system probably operates at a level of chaos that for me is like base level. And so for me,
Mm.
you find comfort in the discomfort because that's what you're used to, and that's how you survived when you were a kid. And so it makes me perfectly twisted enough to do litigation for a living, which sounds terrible, but a lot of lawyers don't do family law because it can be so gut-wrenching. And they don't like how it makes them feel, because there are times where you leave family court and there's some brutal rulings, there's some brutal facts. I remember seeing when I was presided over CPS, I saw a 3-week-old that was put in a microwave. There's things that you see that you can't unsee. I remember some of the domestic violence cases that I saw that you can't unsee. So saying that, I've always operated at a different level. I'm not saying it's a good level to operate at. I'm not saying I'd recommend it for anyone to operate at. But the one thing that my childhood taught me was how to compartmentalize. And man, I can compartmentalize. And I compartmentalize like a professional. Like, I could write a book on it. And a lot of what I have done to survive a litigation lifestyle is you have to compartmentalize. There's no choice. So
Do you,
I don't know that I have the healthiest
yeah.
coping mechanisms. Like, I did almost get up to 300 pounds, but I was also in not a great marriage. So, there's unhealthy and healthy coping mechanisms. But I operated at a different level of chaos than probably most people do. And I think people that do family law for a living probably, for the most part, operate at a different level as well.
Do you think there will come a day where you will have to pay the piper, or do you think that in essence, that's what's been going on in recent years, as you talked about all of these surgeries and medical issues too, that, you're an expert at compartmentalization, and you're still carrying that weight with you.
Up my microphone. Sorry, I sneezed. I'm paying the piper. I've been paying the piper for 5 years. And that's part of the reason why I'm doing this now. Because I absolutely paid the piper. So when I talk about my therapist tells me to sit in it, I'm like, no, I don't want to. He's like, but you have to because it served you up until now. It's not serving you anymore. And so while compartmentalization really served me for a very long time and helped me get to where I am today, it is something that I need to let go of and figure out how to balance things in a more healthy manner because I've spent the last 5 years paying the piper. And y'all, I've paid enough. I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, you're done. And so the what now, what is, what does that look like for you? And how do you really in a more final way, or at least in a way that serves you, to get back to what your therapist had shared with you, how do you disentangle yourself from that so that it's not a piece of you that you're carrying forward any longer?
I have gotten much better about boundaries. I have gotten much better about saying no. And by the way, no is a complete sentence. And I'll be real blunt. I'm done dealing with bullshit. I'm just done. And those were probably some of the 3 biggest changes that I've made. I'm done. And really the last one, the done dealing with bullshit. Done. Don't waste my time. And I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm going to be very honest and open. And I'm going to tell you what I think. Before, I cared more about what other people thought about the image, about the Instagram perfect. And I'm at a point now in my life. That's one thing about, and I think for women in particular, once we get into our 40s, especially after 45, we have a switch that flips. And I'm done with the bullshit. And I got to tell you, it is such a fabulous place to be.
It is. It is. And you have to lean into those triggers and stop compartmentalizing, in my opinion. You have to kind of lean into when you're feeling your nervous system triggered, instead of putting it in that compartment that you're so expertly trained to do, actually kind of like being like, okay, what is this? I talk about my trigger detector as, that emotional sensation you get when you're getting in those icky feelings. And I liken it to, the magnetic finder you would use at the beach if you're looking for metal, right? The metal detector. And when it goes ding, when it makes its sound, you don't drop it and run away, right? You don't put more dirt on the
What? We
metal,
don't? I thought that's what the instruction manual said you were supposed to do with it.
right?
Drop it and run.
But you dig and you find the thing that you're being told to pay attention to. But with our nervous system, we often are so trained and so good at doing the exact opposite and running. And it just gets us further and further away from the path back home to ourselves. And I do think, in family law, that is, I give you such applause for the work you do, because we need people who are willing to do that work to help people come home to themselves. And often it's not possible in that partnership that they're in. Sometimes that is unfortunately something that can't continue. And so we do need people who are there to help us navigate that and then find our new beginnings, even though I know, like you said, it's a special skill set and it is extremely challenging. After, we've spent a lot of time talking about, I am so grateful you sharing your experience so vulnerably, which I think will really help people who are going through their own divorce, who are navigating the legal process and field. I think that is so valuable for them. Taking, that beautiful hindsight is 2020 perspective with your expertise that you have. So we don't always think about before getting married, because we're stuck in that beautiful neurochemical milieu with all the dopamine and the romantic joy we're feeling, that we're not.
Sex in the beginning. Whew.
Oh, yeah, you're stuck in, and the bonding. When you talk about sex, it's not even just about that experience. It's also, again,
It's not.
neurochemical.
It's yeah.
That bond happens very quickly, if not immediately. And that's something that we don't always talk about with people who are becoming sexually active. Like, there's a neurochemical bond that is formed.
Oh,
And
yeah. Oh, it
when
changes things. Everyone's like, "Oh, we can just keep
it
it,
does,
as exercise." No, you
it,
can't.
no, you can't. So when you're in this, you're having this experience and you're experiencing all these beautiful neurochemicals and you think it's love. And what are the things that you, as a family law attorney, would say, yes, I'm so glad you're having this beautiful human experience? And what's on the and list of things that if people are considering partnering and they're wanting to become married, right? What are some things I've heard you talk about a prenup and things like that? What are some things that people should be considering before they get married to help them navigate a marriage, to help them set up those boundaries and make sure that if unfortunately they experience the statistical, possibility that we know is there in the future of going through a divorce, that they're protected and that they can move forward in their lives with the least carnage possible?
Oh, advice. You can always do the cynical, "Well, don't do it," but that doesn't work. Um, and that's actually not even what I believe anyways. I'm probably a hopeless romantic. What I would say is I think long gone are the days of solely having joint accounts. I would say prenups can be a smart choice, but they're not the only choice. And if you can't have the honest conversation with the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with, if you can't have those hard conversations before you get married, like having a prenup or whether you're going to have one, not have one, but if you can't have those hard conversations before marriage, I hate to break it to you, the conversations you're going to have during marriage will be much more difficult. And if so, you can't have them before, you need to do a gut check on whether you're going to be able to do them later because there are going to be life and death decisions during marriage. There's going to be serious, difficult things that you encounter that if you can't talk about, you're going to have a problem. And so that's probably one of the biggest tips that I would give like to the younger generation. Something else I would tell people that they're thinking about getting married, especially when you're younger and you're in that dopamine, this is wonderful, my life is going to be a fairy tale, is control is not love.
Mm.
And because it gets turned with, oh, well, he or she is possessive of me because they're just so in love. And control is not love, bottom line. And I think those are some of the important things to look at. Some of the other important things are that no one marriage is the same. There is no norm in marriage because you are bringing two individuals into a relationship with two different backgrounds, two different implicit biases. You're coming from different life experiences. And so you can't ever look at the marriage down the street and go, why isn't our life like that? Or will they have this? No marriage is Instagram perfect. Every marriage has issues, and you need to be able to communicate because if you can't communicate, it's not going to work.
Those are beautiful things to think about. And one of the ways that I verbalize something you said about having those tough conversations is non-negotiables. So what are your non-negotiables to try to make it like really actionable? Are you allowed to have non-negotiables? Right. And that goes back to what you said, the one liner. And I think these one liners are so great because life gets messy when we're in a fight or flight or freeze moment in our lives. Sometimes these one liners are the only thing that we can hear that makes any actual sense, that has any, claim to reality. And I think one
Oh,
of them is
there's
what
some
you
good
said, which is
one-liners.
no. No is a complete sentence. So when you are talking to someone and they're disregarding you or gaslighting you or explaining why actually you're the problem because you're saying no or because you have a different opinion, no is a complete sentence is so
It is
beautiful.
so powerful just to say, no. You have never been empowered in your life until you really start using no without a following up with a reason why you're saying no. Just say no. You don't need to say, no, but it's because we have this, and this going on, or I've got this obligation. No, just no, thanks.
Okay, everybody at home, internalize this. The first time I ever heard no as a complete sentence was from my family law attorney. And it floored me because, and remember, female physician, right? Smart, accomplished, been through a lot in my personal life. And that had never been spoken to me, and certainly was not the mindset that I was cultivated to hold.
The wife, you're never supposed to say no.
Never.
Never.
And as a physician,
Never.
and certainly not a female physician, you certainly should not say no.
Oh, you can't
and
say
modern
no.
medicine, no, especially with the modern medicine and the ratings and everything. Nope, you can't say no. And I think that is so dangerous.
Listen, I've told my doctors no. And like the look on their face when you tell them no, they're like, wait, what? I'm like, no, I'm not, no, let's not do that. but I will tell you, they appreciate it.
Yes, they do. And it's good for you. And you know what? I would not discount that they go home and they're like, well, maybe I'm going to try that out. That was actually kind of cool.
Listen, I don't have any doubt that half of my doctors go home to their spouses, male or female, and go, man, this whirlwind came in today and whoa. It may be good, it may be bad, but I don't have any doubt because every doctor's office I walk in, because I'm a repeat customer for various reasons. Hey, Michelle, how's it going? I'm like, this is terrible that y'all know me. But anyways.
But you know what? They can take care of you when they know you, and you can take care of you when you know you. And that is the whole idea behind this show, this podcast, is really encouraging people to get to know themselves for their health and wellness, because it is critical. Absolutely.
Listen, so I had a post-op bleed on my second knee. And I've been through enough surgeries that I had kept calling my doctor's office. This is y'all that they know me. And I'm like, it's not right. They're like, send pictures. And I sent pictures. They're like, oh, it's normal. I'm like, all right. And then kept calling a couple days later. And then I finally got another doctor on the phone, and he didn't call me back for like 45 minutes. But at that point, I was at 102.1 fever. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to the ER. So he didn't call me back for like 45 minutes. And then finally, he called me while I was sitting in the ER. And I was like, look, these are the symptoms. He's like, well, you have two options. You can go to the ER, or you can wait for your office appointment on Monday. And let's just say I told him exactly what I thought. And I said, basically, maybe if you have a patient that has been through as many procedures as I have, and I'm telling you something's wrong, you should listen. And I said, but thanks for your late call. I'm already at the ER. Talk to y'all Monday. Click.
Yeah.
So, probably not the nicest I was, but at that point I was done. And so I went to my doctor's office that Monday to go see my doctor. And it's the same group. So one of their doctors was on call. And I said, yeah, we got a problem. And he's like, yeah, I heard about your phone call. I said, well, but he laughed. He's like, listen, he's good for you. And then I had to go in for, I think, a week. I had to go in twice a week for like 3 weeks to get my leg drained, because it just kept, because I had a post-op bleed, which doesn't happen very often, but I got one. So saying no is you have to make sure that you make yourself a priority, and you have to make sure that your medical providers hear you, whether they want to or not. Father once told me that every woman in professional school was a wasted space for a man, because men can work harder.
And I imagine that had an effect on you that he didn't anticipate.
Yeah. It was, I mean, I was too young at that age to say, here, hold my beer, but let's just say I did that.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's a beautiful inspiration in that, in a sense, because it showed who you are, right? And you can look back at that moment and be like, wow, the person, and this is something that you've talked about on your podcast, but like, the responsibility we have to try to divorce responsibly and be civil because, our kids are experiencing this, right? Like, so at the end of the day, no matter what your family dynamic is, generally kids are looking to their parents as if they are truly gods, and they are really seeing them as infallible. And it's the parents have to do really horrific things, and sometimes it doesn't even matter if they do horrific things, to lose that trust, because
Correct.
you are safety, you are survival for that child. And the fact that you were able to go through that moment and not internalize that from your primary, one of your primary caregiver, but say, nope, you don't define who I am, is just a testament to your strength. It doesn't make it okay that it happened. And it's incredibly unfortunate. But I also,
it's not unfortunate. I'm glad it happened. Like, and I'm trying to think. I think it was Anderson. Stephen Colbert talked about this once. I don't regret the bad that's happened to me. I thank God for it because it's where I am, who I am today because of it. So I wouldn't go back and change a thing because I'm pretty happy with who I am. I'm not perfect. Do I have my skeletons? So does everyone else. Do I have mistakes I've made? Absolutely. And that's okay. I'm glad I went through that. I'm glad he was an SOB. Glad. That's where I am where I am today because of it. So I guess I should thank him.
I think we have a few new one-liners that stand alone from your reflection alone.
One more. I got one more.
Yeah.
All it takes is 15 seconds to change your life. All it takes. One decision can change everything.
For better, for worse, and
for better, for worse, and you just have to have the courage to do it. So it's 15 seconds to walk out that door. It's 15 seconds to make that phone call to divorce attorney. It's 15 seconds to call your doctor's office to schedule a colonoscopy. It is 15 seconds. 15 seconds can change your life.
It's beautiful. And sometimes we need a little help fortifying our internal feeling of autonomy and strength before we can take those steps when we're setting off on the first 15 seconds of the rest of our lives. And I highly, highly recommend your podcast. If you're feeling unsettled and you're feeling like you do need to make a change, you're having some thoughts about your relationship, I highly recommend that you listen to Michele Locke's podcast, because that can be the shift in your mindset to help you take the step to choose you and to choose your future and to make that first step, that first 15 seconds of the rest of your life. So everybody go listen, subscribe. It's amazing. This has been an amazing conversation, Michele. How can people, if they are not yet connected with you, how can they follow you on social media and listen to the podcast?
I have my website, michelelocke.com, and you can find all my links there. But I'm on Instagram at Attorney Michele Locke. You can find my podcast, Love Less Law, wherever you find your podcast. So Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you find them. And just remember, my mother spelled my name with one L, not two. So it's Michele with one L. And so I thank her for that because I have to explain it every time. But you can follow me on Instagram. My LinkedIn's Michele Locke. I'm not hard to find. Let's just put it that way.
And I'm so grateful that I came across your amazing work and story and that you were able to come on the show and share it with us today. Thank you so much, Michele.
This has been the absolute pleasure of my day.
Oh, thank you. Even after the high in the courtroom, I'm going to put that in my pocket and take it with me the rest of the day.
You win. You win today because this was like the nice calming, I can breathe again after my, you ever want to have another discussion again, more than happy to. This is great.
Thank you so much. And storytellers, I know that you are just tingling and also feeling that calm, which frankly, when we're talking about family law, I can tell you from personal experience, not a common sensation, but I think that's where it's really important to understand that the more information you have, the closer you are to having that regulated experience, even in the challenging times. And that's what we're here for. So thank you again, Michele, for being here. It's been fantastic, and you're welcome back anytime. And thank you, storytellers, for being here. As always, stay safe and take care. I'll talk to you soon.